All right, today I've got Alex Katz of the YouTube channel The News Center. Alex did an excellent viral video called A Response to Dave Rubin, which I will link in the notes below. Myself and anyone really who finds value in Rubin criticism in this absurd political climate are probably getting quite tired of the same excuses coming from Rubin fans day after day. Instead of repeating myself constantly, I've given myself the difficult task of role-playing a Rubin apologist today. What's your problem, Alex? Why are you constantly complaining about Rubin? Like, why do you even think that this deserves so much attention? What the fuck is your problem, you fucking regressive?
The reason that I sort of single him out and I really go after him is that he has influence, and he's that kind of in the space that I'm interested in, because I'm an atheist. I'm someone on the left who occasionally likes to criticize the left, and he pretends to do that, and he does it in a terrible way where he's actually promoting the right and promoting stuff I don't like at all. So I kind of feel like, especially at this moment in history, I want to, point out the problems with him.
Well, what about like all these big names that are totally fine with Rubin? Lawrence Krauss went on his show. There's lots of respectable left-leaning people that have been on his show.
Well, that's exactly the problem I have with him. Either they don't know or they're willfully ignorant about what Rubin's doing on his show. And the fact that he gets those kind of guests and he gets respect from those people, it's absolutely infuriating. So what I'm doing, in the words of Dave Rubin, I'm cleaning up my side.
Well, what do you mean infuriating? Are you just like triggered or what? Do you need a safe space?
I do need a safe space, and I am triggered. Well, no, it's a question of the fact that right now Donald Trump is president. We have the alt-right is growing. It has huge influence online. It's insane what's going on right now. So I feel like criticizing these people is absolutely necessary.
Do you really think that atheists deserve more of your criticism than the regressive left?
You can criticize both, obviously. It's a question of scale in a large degree, right? Because there's lots of leftist college students. There's Linda Sarsour. There's people I don't agree with. She's someone who goes to these conferences and she sits on a platform with people who advocate incredibly homophobic things, incredibly misogynistic things. But they don't run the United States of America. They're not Donald Trump. They're not taking away healthcare from anyone, right? Linda Sarsour has her extremely right-wing imams that she'll pretend are her friends and are actually moderate. And Dave will talk to these people like Alex Jones. This is a guy who claims there's a conspiracy from the New World Order to make frogs gay. When he was on Alex Jones' show, he acted like Alex Jones had never said awful things. He'll talk to these people like Stefan Molyneux, Paul Joseph Watson, InfoWars. These people who have absolutely abhorrent views, and he won't challenge them whatsoever.
What Dave Rubin does is he provides a platform. He provides a service for people like that who get shouted down by the bullying leftists to have a place to just air their views. He's really not on the right or anything. He's just a centrist. He's exploring both sides.
Guys like you and me, our whole fucking lives, we're going to be like, in 10 years, we'll be fighting the right again. And then in another 10 years, we'll be fighting the left again.
Yeah, so that's center. So where do you actually consider yourself politically? I think I have a good sense, and one of the things we've been talking about here is sort of this new growing center.
So 5 years ago, we're liberals and conservatives. We're just fighting about everything. Now, actually, there's a new center developing.
Well, that's something that infuriates me again. I hate when Dave Rubin calls himself a centrist because it's incredibly dishonest. I mean, you look at his economic views, he's on the far right. He actually said that he wants a 15% flat tax. He actually works with this libertarian think tank that's funded by the Koch brothers. So in no sense of the word is he liberal on economics. And he kind of actually admits that. His explanation for why he's actually liberal is that he's socially liberal. But he's not even socially liberal.
But he's a gay married man. What do you mean he's not socially liberal?
The fact is that he doesn't actually stand up for gay rights at all. What he's actually said that he's very concerned about Christian cake bakers who are being forced to bake cakes by gay people. He's against anti-discrimination laws.
That's just because he's pro-freedom of speech for everyone.
The fact of the matter is, he claims to be a gay married man, but he's defending Donald Trump, who just appointed a Supreme Court Justice, Neil Gorsuch. And this guy is a complete carbon copy of Antonin Scalia. And you look at Antonin Scalia's views, he was incredibly against the gay marriage decision from a couple years ago. He was incredibly homophobic. He said some awful things about gay people. And that kind of view is being put forward in the Supreme Court of the United States, quite likely. So what Dave is doing doing, he's promoting anti-gay rights in the guise of being a gay person who's finally got everything he wants now. The fact of the matter is he allies with plenty of people who are homophobic, whether it's conservative Republicans like Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro.
At least he doesn't have an echo chamber. At least he's listening to both sides, unlike lamestream media, which just has a liberal bias.
Well, it's funny because I actually went through every single guest Dave has had since he went independent, and I tossed at everyone who was a celebrity, who was a basketball player. There were 38 conservatives, which is 83% of his total guests were conservative. So he actually does lean right when it comes to his guests. A lot of his defense of himself is that he's open to anyone. He's going to give a positive interview, kind of a puff interview for everyone. And if you just give a puff interview to everyone and 83% of your guests are conservative, that kind of shows where you fall. And the fact of the matter is, when Dave Rubin has a left-winger on his show, it's completely to serve a right-wing viewpoint. He had David Sirota, who's a left-wing journalist, on his show. But what is David Sirota known for? He's known for attacking Hillary Clinton from the left. So he actually only had David Sirota on the show to criticize Hillary Clinton. You notice Dave Rubin does not have people like Bill Kristol or never Trump Republicans like David Frum who come on and have problems with Trump, have problems with the right. Dave Rubin has not once held Trump's feet to the fire. Even when Trump completely goes against libertarian values, which Dave Rubin pretends to be a huge exponent of, what does he do? He's totally silent when Trump is protectionist, when Trump wants to ban Muslims, when Trump goes against every libertarian precept on a lot of issues. He doesn't mention it whatsoever. When Bernie Sanders does something that's against libertarian values, he's on him like white on rice. It's amazing. He is completely pro-Trump. Even if he's in his heart is not pro-Trump, his entire output is pro-Trump. His audience is pro-Trump. So the net effect of his show is to prop up Donald Trump. I don't care what's in his heart, honestly.
This was a win for us, right? Because if you think about it, the elite, the media, everybody, the establishment all wanted one thing to happen. And what happened? The people actually used their voting power to stop that very thing from happening. That's actually beautiful. Now, if you hate Trump, let's see what happens. My feeling is at the moment, I think there's a great opportunity here.
So you just want to no platform his guests, basically. I mean, regressive, just like I thought.
I actually think that suppressing abhorrent views is not the way to go. This is 2017. People are going to get their views out there in the public square. I think the best way to extinguish bad ideas is to combat them with your ideas and debate them. Does Dave do that? Not in the least. He gives these right-wingers a complete open platform. He doesn't ask tough follow-up questions. He doesn't do great research on what their views are, but he doesn't act like that for the left. It's a complete double standard. You look at someone like Alex Jones. He actually said that the Sandy Hook massacre was a government conspiracy. Think about that. That's a well-known fact. Anyone who follows politics knows that. If
Look, the mainstream media is biased, regressive.
Alex Jones is not the solution to making the media less biased or more accurate. He's actually much worse than the mainstream media. He's making things worse. Dave attacks CNN for being quote unquote fake news, but at the same time he promotes people like Paul Watson, who's a 9/11 truther. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. There are facts. There are ascertainable facts. And if you go on Alex Jones' show and you know that he said these ridiculous things, why not say, hey, you've said this kind of thing. Why did you say that?
We're immersed in this outrage culture, and identity politics by SJWs is just taking over. Like, what do you expect? I fucking hate these regressives who just throw out these meaningless buzzwords like racist, bigot, Islamophobe, transphobe. None of that means anything. So sick of them labeling everyone and making these words meaningless by overusing them.
That's exactly the kind of Dave Rubin word salad of cliches that we're so used to. And obviously, yes, there are some people on college campuses who take political correctness or being conscientious about what you say or being concerned about racism to a super extreme. That's possible. It doesn't mean that you can do the same thing yourself. And that's what Dave is doing. He reduces everything to this little cliche. But you can look at someone like Lauren Southern. You can look at someone like Paul Joseph Watson and say, hey, I'm going to come to a conclusion based on all the information I have about you. And if you don't come to a conclusion that those people are absolutely abhorrent, I don't respect you.
As far as having these abhorrent views on his shows, I mean, he's just giving people enough rope to hang themselves with. This is a well-known journalistic tactic. So I don't know what your fucking problem is.
That's not actually what Dave does. He doesn't actually ask tough follow-up questions. He doesn't actually explore people's views with a critical lens. He has his own little cliched narrative he adds to every interview. The left is out of control. I believe in free speech. I'm a classical liberal. He hits those points on every single interview, right? But a good interviewer actually researches their guests and asks them questions that spark debate, that poke at what they believe, and actually create a conversation, right? A good interviewer is not just a megaphone for the person they're talking to. Have you ever heard Dave Rubin ask a tough follow-up question? If you actually watch Dave's interviews, you get false impressions of people. Look at his interview with Paul Joseph Watson. He asks limply, "Are you a conspiracy theorist?" And Paul Watson says no. An actual journalist would have gone through Paul Watson's output and said, hey, then why did you say that the 7/7 bombing in London was a government conspiracy? Doesn't that make you a conspiracy theorist? A minimally talented journalist would be able to do that. Another example is the British anti-Islam activist Tommy Robinson. When Dave was interviewing Tommy Robinson, he didn't actually investigate the reasons that people call him anti-Muslim or a bigot, and he didn't ask any tough follow-up questions to push him on that. I'm not an expert on Tommy Robinson, but I've seen his Twitter account, and I see that this guy is a complete lunatic. And if Dave had just done a little bit of research, he could have pushed back on him, and maybe Tommy Robinson could have explained himself better, but the audience would have been educated through that kind of conversation. He just asked him if he was a bigot or not. And obviously he's going to say no. That's so weak. Or you can just look at his recent interview with Lauren Southern. Lauren Southern actually defended Richard Spencer in that interview. She said, well, these people don't understand. Richard Spencer's not a white supremacist. He's just a white nationalist. If that's a good defense in your opinion, and you don't want to push back on that, you're insane.
Even the Richard Spencers of the world, like they're kind of misrepresented as well. Like Richard Spencer is not a white supremacist. He is a white nationalist. He believes in a white ethno-state. He doesn't believe in whites being superior.
And then look at the interviews that Dave Rubin has given to other people. I can just give you 3 examples. We already talked about how he went on Alex Jones. He also went on Stefan Molyneux's Christmas special. You look at that Christmas special guest list, which included Rubin, Gavin McInnes, Mike Cernovich, Chuck Johnson, Lauren Southern, Vox Day, the white supremacist. Rubin is going on shows full of the alt-right and saying that he agrees with them. You'd have to be a complete moron not to know that those people are alt-right, white supremacist, racist douchebags. Another example, Dave went on a podcast of this woman, Libtard America. She's part of the alt-right.
She actually complained online, quote unquote, Jews are overrepresented in media, academia, and finance. Further, they are an insular community that promotes diversity in their host countries. This was in the context of discussing the so-called JQ, or Jewish question. That's essentially the dictionary definition of anti-Semitism.
And if you're going to go on these kind of shows and not challenge them, I'm going to have to say, you're either completely spineless, you agree with them, or you're a complete moron.
We need more allies in this space. And I don't care where people are or what they look like or anything. I care about their ideas, and I've consistently, seen you guys putting out some good stuff, and occasionally have come to my defense on some things.
He'll defend anyone on the right by just saying, well, they're just shitposting, they're just trolling, bro.
Even Trump?
He actually said when Trump proposed that we ban flag burning and send those people to prison and strip their citizenship, he just said, LOL, trolling, ha ha ha. If someone on the left had said that, he would have lost his mind completely over the free speech aspect of it. I defy anyone to find a good example of Dave Rubin really criticizing Donald Trump. All I see from Dave Rubin is minimizing the threat of Donald Trump. It's never talking about how he's taking away health care, how he's promoting these protectionist ideas. No, it's all about, well, the left is upset about Trump in the wrong way. The fact is that Dave went to any length to defend Donald Trump. He actually defended Donald Trump on the pussy-grabbing tape by deflecting and saying, well, what about WikiLeaks?
Look, you're acting like he's a total right-winger now. I mean, he's a classical liberal. He says so time and time again.
Dave is trying to give himself cover by willfully ignoring terminology. A classical liberal is basically one kind of libertarian. That's not the American definition of liberal, which generally means the center-left. He confuses that point in order to obfuscate about what his views are. It's absolutely ridiculous. You could read the Wikipedia entry on Classical Liberal and understand that Dave Rubin is wrong. He doesn't get it. And you know what else he doesn't get? Basic history. In an interview recently, he said Jesus was surrounded by Muslims. Well, you know what, Dave? He was about 700 years and change too early for that, right?
Gay people and Muslims and the way they feel about those two groups, I still think is mostly Jesus' fault.
So that's Jesus right there. Even though Jesus probably would have been
loved them
gay
both,
people
right?
and Muslims. And
well, that's
he was around a lot of Muslims. It was the Middle East, and
that's not a trivial error. That's being very ill-informed. If you didn't catch yourself immediately saying that, I have serious doubts about what you know about history. Or anything, really. If you want to be a political commentator, you have to know something about politics. You have to read the newspaper. And maybe that's the problem. Dave's getting his news from 4chan memes. He's not reading the New York Times or the Washington Post, which he dubs fake news.
And you're fine with the same exact guest list if you just talk to them a little bit more effectively.
I would be fine if Dave Rubin only talked to Nazis. I would be totally fine with that if he pushed back on those guests.
So it just sounds to me like you're like a triggered little snowflake that's just upset about Dave Rubin. Like, what are you, jealous?
Dave's actually pretty #triggered himself very often. Dave was triggered by a Super Bowl commercial for the car company Audi that mentioned the wage gap. He's gotten to the point where he's annoyed by commercials that show immigrants because it promotes SJW culture in the Super Bowl. I mean, how triggered do you have to be? What a special snowflake this guy is.
What about identity politics? At least Dave is standing up against identity politics.
The alt-right is just identity politics for white people. It's extreme identity politics that views America as a white country that needs its racial purity defended. That is identity politics to the nth degree. And Dave never criticizes that. And he allies with people who promote those kind of ideas. So he's not against identity politics. He's fine with identity politics from the right. He only has a problem with identity politics when it's on the left. So he's totally hypocritical on that issue.
Yeah, but you say this as if, Milo hasn't denounced the alt-right or Paul Joseph Watson isn't fighting with Richard Spencer all the time. And Cernovich didn't have fights with people over the Hitler salute.
Not being a neo-Nazi is not really a feather in your cap. Okay? I'm not going to throw a ticker tape parade for you because you're not a neo-Nazi. Lauren Southern actually said she was part of the alt-right. Milo wrote an article praising the alt-right as dangerously bright. And his boss, Steve Bannon, bragged that Breitbart was the platform for the alt-right. What is going on in society when the only thing that's off limits is being a self-avowed alt-right person, a self-avowed Nazi, a self-avowed white supremacist? It's about the ideas, as Dave likes to say. It's not about the labels necessarily. You actually investigate these people's ideas, and they're incredibly far right, they're incredibly racist, and they're against the basic liberal cosmopolitan values that Dave claims he supports. Apparently, there's no line he really draws with these people. There's nothing from the right that he'll ever seem to actually call out.
Surely he engages with some of his serious critics, though.
Well, that's where you're wrong. The left-wing radio host, Sam Seder, actually asked to be on Dave's show. He called Dave out and said, hey, I'm seeing what you're doing with your show. I don't like it. And I want to be on your show to criticize you and have an argument, have a discussion, have a conversation, ideas, Don't have a bubble, snowflake, whatever, right? So what did Dave do in response to that? Silence. He didn't respond to Sam Seder. He's spineless. He's absolutely spineless. It's always, well, I'm on the left, and I'm a classical liberal, and I believe in freedom. No, Dave. Get down to the brass tacks and actually argue with people. Actually debate stuff. He is so useless when it comes to actually getting to specifics. And that's why he can hold this vague position about every issue. He wants to be on every side. He wants to please the Sam Harris fans and placate them, while at the same time he wants to placate the people who are Alex Jones fans. You have to draw some lines, right? You have to believe in some facts. You can't just hop on the InfoWars bandwagon and expect you won't get criticism when you claim to be a skeptic. You are anything but a skeptic. And that's what really pisses me off about Dave Rubin. As I see it, there's a resurgent far right in the world. And Dave Rubin is on that side. And if he doesn't actually believe those things, he's being incredibly dishonest. And I have no respect for that. He might be a nice person to some people, and I don't want to be mean to him personally, but the sum total of his effort right now is absolutely regressive. It's regressive. It's bringing us back. It's bringing us towards the alt-right and racism and conspiracy theories and sexism and just the most disgusting, vile bullshit. He is not on the side of liberalism. He is trying to tell you that liberalism means that you want to talk to everyone and you want to be open to everything.
Yeah, but Alex, come on. At least he's open-minded.
He's open-minded when it comes to a libertarian think tank. When it comes to the Koch brothers, when it comes to InfoWars, he's open-minded. He's open-minded about white nationalists. Is he open-minded about Black Lives Matter? Is he open-minded about Hillary Clinton? Is he open-minded about SJWs? Hell no. He's completely closed-minded.
Okay, but Alex, aren't you like triggered or regressive? Like, I can't do it anymore. I really can't. I have had enough of this shit. Yes, you're right. I agree. You made your case.
You can support this podcast by sharing the shit out of it, making some noise about it, or contributing via Patreon. Patreon.com/Nice Mangoes. No E in mangoes. Also, you can follow me on Twitter @Nice Mangoes. If you want to make a one-time donation instead of a monthly Patreon one, you can do so via PayPal. nicemangoes.blog@gmail.com. Remember, no E in mangoes.
Progressive.
This is normal! This is normal!